Thank you so much for watching Riff TV. Now, this interview is obviously with video, but I don't interview everybody on Zoom. That's why I put it on my Talkin' Rock with Meltdown podcast. We talk to rock artists from all over the genre. So check out Talkin' Rock with Meltdown wherever you get your podcasts. And now to today's video interview.
And there he is, the legend. Rudy, how you doing?
I'm blessed. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. You're going on the Jericho Cruise later this week, aren't you?
I am leaving Wednesday morning, and then we get on board on Thursday, and we come home on Monday. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Chris Jericho is a great guy. I mean, you've obviously done a lot of these cruises in the past, right?
I've done a couple, but with a different, this is the first time it's going to be a boat full of wrestlers. A lot of oil.
I didn't think about that before. Well, you're going to have a great time. I know that, Shiprock just came in, right? They just finished.
I guess so. Yeah, there's a few of those around. I did a couple with the Guess Who, and one of them was the 60s, the Flower Power, whatever, cruise, which is interesting. And then we turned around and we did the 70s, which is the Romance cruise. And the difference between both of them was the 60s, you had like everybody on those little rascals, those little,
yeah,
like you see at Costco, scooters,
right.
yeah. And the 70s, they were still on walkers. They haven't made the transition to the, yeah.
Well, you just celebrated your 72nd birthday a few months back, didn't you?
That's right. I'm making the transition there. I'm practicing. I'm getting my arms ready for it.
You still enjoy touring and hopping up on stage?
Oh yeah. I mean now more than ever because I happen to be home. I'm back with Quiet Riot, and it's everything that you ever saw me do in any other band. I always brought a little bit of Quiet Riot or a whole lot of Quiet Riot with me, like in the case of playing with Whitesnake. But I always ask. I never take it for granted. I always ask, what would you like me to do on stage? And if they tell me, like in Coverdale's case, it says, be yourself. Thank you.
Yeah, Coverdale seems like that kind of guy. I've never met him in person, but I've interviewed him a bunch of times, and he seems like he just goes with anything, right?
Well, basically what worked between him and me as far as communicating what we expect, what he expected of me as a member of Whitesnake was the fact that Whitesnake was the opening band for Quiet Riot in 1984. So he had seen me a few times on stage.
Yeah. Yeah, so he kind of knew what to expect. It's funny you mentioned that, going back home and stuff. I was just texting with David Ellefson, and he asked me, he wanted me to talk to you about, you recently said you're getting the joy back and playing your bass again, and he wanted you to expand on that. And I guess maybe some of it might have to do with being back in Quiet Riot, or no?
Yeah, it has a lot to do with being quiet. I mean, it's not that I had lost the joy. I actually did lose it once. When Randy passed away over 40 years ago, I was much younger. I didn't have the knowledge or experience or have been around enough to really know much about life and understand that the responsibility of us left behind is to celebrate the memory and the music, in our case as musicians, of those who have passed on. I did not know that. I was just trying to run away from going on stage every night without Randy being there and everything that he brought, his musicianship and his friendship, and it's Randy Rhoads. Come on,
Yeah.
And losing that, I lost the joy, and I was not the only one. I would say just about everybody in the band. I would say everybody in the band, Tommy and Ozzy and Sharon and everybody. We were never the same again. But after 40 years, I have learned that it's our responsibility to celebrate the memory, this is what I do when I go on stage, or even as we're having a conversation right now. It's not about me. It's about celebrating the legacy of Quiet Riot and the memory of Randy Rhoads, Frankie Banali, and Kevin DeBro.
Yeah, Ned, I saw that documentary, I think last year or sometime, the Randy Rhoads documentary that his family put out. That was really good.
Actually, his family did not put it out.
Oh, I thought his family did. Oh,
no,
I'm trying to think. Who put that out? Refresh my memory, because somebody wasn't.
Well,
Ozzy wasn't involved, right? For sure.
no, nobody was involved. Whoever put it out, I haven't met the person. I do hear, because I haven't watched it, just because the family did not really support it.
Gotcha.
Because I hear really great things about it, which to me that's the most important thing. You know, it puts Randy in the right light. Of course, it's an aggregate of documentaries previously done and available on other documentaries. It's kind of like, okay, let's find everything that has ever been filmed about Randy Rhoads, you know, during documentaries or anything, and just put a story behind it, put it in a storyboard, so there's a continuity. And that takes a lot of work, and I'm glad that somebody did it. But the family feels a certain way about it, and I am not going to speak on their behalf. All I'm going to say is it was not done with the family's approval.
That's right. That's right. I remember that now, because I did watch it, you know, and listen, I was about 13 or 14, I think, maybe even 12. I can't remember, when I first discovered Ozzy, and then Randy was killed not that long after. And so for me, watching this documentary showed a lot about the stuff leading up to him joining Quiet Riot, and how there was just like bar owners and other musicians around the area. And like I said, I grew up as a kid in Buffalo. I wasn't in Los Angeles on the Strip, so I didn't really know a lot about this stuff and what Randy had, you know, had kind of impressed all these people before joining Quiet Riot. So it was kind of like a background story to him just getting started too.
Yes, it is. You know, and the more information there is about Randy Rhoads out there, the better, so people can really understand his contribution.
Yeah. So let's talk about a Quiet Riot. I can't hold on. You know, that video is very stirring. Talk about that video first of all.
Okay. Regina Banali, Frankie's wife, who also directed the documentary. Now You're Here, There's No Way Back, you know, the Quiet Riot documentary. She did that. And as a filmmaker, she films everything, you know, especially very special occasions. And I was not aware that she was filming when Frankie told me about him having been diagnosed, just like at that moment, with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. You know, he took me to his garden at his home and told me about it. And she even filmed when Frankie gave me a 1966 Fender Precision, which I have right here next to me. And he presented that to me, and I was really, it's not, you know, such a beautiful instrument. And I mean, it's a classic, you know, vintage instrument. And I couldn't play it for months because I associated his cancer with the bass, you know. And then, of course, just like everything else, you have to find the light in everything. And finding the light was finding the joy of playing that instrument. And the memories of Frankie giving it to me, not with the cancer, but as a 50-year-old friendship, and being bandmates many times, you know, because, you know, before we recorded the Mental Health record, we have been playing for over 10 years now, struggling. And finally, here we are. You know, I just went in for one song originally, Thunderbird, because I was still a member of Ozzy at that time. And to be playing with Frankie, that just completed full circle, everything for me, you know, in that recording session.
Yeah. And then Alex finds this song, if I'm not mistaken, like I said at the beginning, on this iPod. I Can't Hold On. Correct me if I'm wrong, it was pretty much, it was bare bones. Your parts weren't on there, correct?
No, we're not. No, they were not there. I mean, how he recorded that as a demo, that song he recorded the music, gave it to Kevin to write and sing some vocals for a demo. And at some point, Frankie's drums came on it. And by the time that I got the copy of it to track, it had everything on it except for the bass. So I was my own engineer. I tracked it right here in this room. And I did my own engineering, like I always do, anytime I record here. And you produce yourself, you get ideas, you try different things. But what really helped me was the fact that I had done few records already with Frankie and Kevin, and I have been a member of Quiet Riot since 1978, on and off, and so I know what the roots of Quiet Riot is musically, the boundaries, but also you want to stretch out a little bit and show some kind of growth and progression and all of that. So I brought all the elements that I knew and I really gave it a lot of thought to what my contribution to the track was going to be.
Now, what was your it's kind of, I don't know how to even ask this. What was your thoughts the first time you watched that video, or did you help put that together? I mean, you mentioned video and stuff.
Yeah, that's a great question. The sequence of events happened is okay. So I officially rejoined the band late 2021. And so, Alex and I, we started looking into the future. It's like, if we're going to release some music, let's see what we have. So I was looking on my catalog. He was looking on his catalog. And that's how he rediscovered that song. It's like, oh, he had forgotten about it. There it was. And he sent it to me and he says, what do you think? And I go, wow, this is phenomenal. Even just guitars and vocals and drums, that was just amazing. So I'm listening to it, and it's just like I'm being emotionally stirred. As a matter of fact, there's a part in that video that it's actually me listening to that song for the first time. And so it was, I thought it was one of the best things Quiet Riot had ever done, And now that I listened to the track as a whole, I'm going like, wow, this is one of Kevin's best performances, and overall, everybody.
Yeah, and then, but like I said, but watching that video for the first time, I mean, I was moved, and I didn't, I met Frankie, and I knew Kevin a little bit from my early days in radio and stuff, and and he's been gone a long time. And I'm watching that video myself, and the first thing that kind of struck me was maybe the Johnny Cash Hurt video, but in a way different way, of course. You've seen that video, correct?
Oh yes, I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this was
I've seen it.
This was like a real emotional type video like that.
Yeah, because it takes you through, the first section of the song is about Kevin, and then he passes, and then Frankie is celebrating Kevin's memory by going back and putting the band together, and then he's diagnosed with cancer. So you have this whole the cycle begins again, and this one really detailed because Regina was there to capture those moments, but the ending is very uplifting.
Yeah.
And it's the ending, and to me it really represents the reason why we carry on, as a band, Quiet Riot. And it was basically, when I rejoined the band in late 2021, it was, you have Alex Grossi, who had been playing with Kevin for 20 years, or in Quiet Riot for 20 years, because
Right.
he kept playing with Quiet Riot after Kevin passed away. So Kevin picked him and groomed him, even as a young player, on all things Quiet Riot, the consciousness, what the band is about. And then you have Jizzy, who came into the band, Jizzy Pearl, and picked by Frankie after Kevin passed away. And then you have Johnny Kelly on drums, who Frankie picked to originally sub for him. And then when he realized that he was not going to be able to play for a while because of his condition, he asked Johnny to stay on and be a permanent drummer until Frankie could actually go out there and do it, because he never lost the hope of getting back on stage again and play drums. That's what it started. That's Frankie. I first met Frankie. Actually, I saw him play the night before I met him. So yeah, if there's anything you can, you can actually describe, any word that describes Frankie, will be drummer.
Yeah. Yeah. Johnny Kelly's a friend of mine. We're both brothers in hockey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. I love Johnny. Really do.
It's kind of cool that, you rejoined the band and you really are the gateway to the heyday of Quiet Riot. You know what I'm saying? It's like when people go there, they're seeing Quiet Riot. And like you said, you're kind of keeping this music alive. I mean, of course, with Jizzy and Johnny and Alex as well, but you were really there when Quiet Riot took over the world.
Actually, I was there even before Quiet Riot took over the world.
Yeah.
Let's say 78. And I took away from the band two elements that I think are fundamental for any successful group. One of them is what Randy Rhoads brought to the band, which was musical integrity. He was born into a musical family. His mom and dad, music professors. They have a school. The family still has a school, Musonia, of music. Randy was a musician before he even joined a rock band. I'm talking about, he knew how to play classical guitar, and he sight read. And then he became a teacher. When I first joined the band, he was already a teacher at Musonia. So the musical integrity was paramount to the level of no other musician I've ever played with. Just because this is what Randy was born to do. It wasn't like, I don't even think he had a choice in it. He just flowed into it. He's born and then into a musical family, and he's a musician, And I mean, to the point that he made certain choices and decisions in his career based on his musical integrity. Just to encapsulate what I just said, when he was basically, there was a demand by the record company that Randy would record "Speak of the Devil," which was the re-recordings of Black Sabbath songs by Ozzy Osbourne.
Wait a second, hold on for 1 second. So that was already determined before Randy died that you guys were going to do a live Sabbath record?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, all right, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And not only a live record, but a live video of us recording that.
And if I'm not mistaken, that's because Sabbath put out that Live Evil. Is that right? So Ozzy had
actually, they were working on it, but then again, it was not Ozzy's. It was the record company.
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
really, and so Randy quit the band. He gave Ozzy, notice that he was going to go back to school, get his degree. It wasn't like I'm going to quit the band. I'm going to put my own band together and keep doing this. No, it was like, I'm going back to school. I'm going to get my degree, my master's degree in music. That's all they care, and then he died, and to actually watch Randy's integrity at the level of being a local legend in Los Angeles prior to joining Ozzy, and then me joining Randy and Ozzy, and watch him with this ultimate level of musical integrity as a member of Ozzy after he had received the Best New Guitar Player award. I mean, he was already a bona fide rock star, living legend by the time that he died. By the time that he actually gave notice to Ozzy that he was going to go back to school. I learned that. And that's been engraved in me ever since. So wherever I go, I bring that. Also, when Randy left Quiet Riot, the band ceased to exist as a band. It became Dubrow, which is Kevin put his band together. And I got to tell you, his level of tenacity at a time when the music that he was doing was nowhere to be seen as far as what was coming from England, because we're talking 40 something years ago. There was no social network that you could see. Yes, there's a Def Leppard and an Iron Maiden and a Saxon and a Motorhead making it, really kicking butt in England and Europe. Nobody knew that. I knew that because those were some of the opening bands for Ozzy.
Yeah.
I knew about Def Leppard kicking butt. Yeah, it was easy. I would see them every night. I knew about Motorhead kicking butt. I would see them every night. we toured with Saxon in Europe. I saw Iron Maiden in England when I was there. I saw everything that was going on. So what we would do is Randy and I would come on a break back home to LA. First thing we would do, go to Kevin's place, pick him up, take him to the Rainbow, and give him a report. Mainly, don't quit what you're doing. By the way, there's these guys in England. They bang their heads against the stage when we play. That's where head banging and bang your head came from.
Right.
Randy and I reporting to Kevin what was actually going on. But even with that, the tenacity that Kevin had to keep on going in Los Angeles, when at the time the music that not only he was making but everybody else. I mean, Motley Crue was out there, Rat was out there. Blackie had his own thing going on. Great White I think it was called Dante Fox at the time. They had their thing there, but they were still going at it. See, we did not know how to all of a sudden turn around and become punk or new wave. We could be influenced by it, but we would sound like, and that's what 80s metal is. If you put 70s metal and 80s metal in between, there was punk and new wave. So you're going to have this kind of like Black Sabbath, Deep Purple metal, 70s. Then all of a sudden you got the 80s metal. All these guys, including myself, we were playing in the same clubs as all the new wave and punk bands were in LA. You have to be influenced first because you watch them and you go, shit, these guys are kicking ass on stage. They're just playing like they're being punk. It's like early Who, destroying things and being like very in your face. You got to bring that to your music. So that in your face attitude was not there in the 70s from metal bands. It came around in the 80s thanks to new wave and punk.
You're just talking about this. It just reminded me. I know you didn't see the documentary, but there was a guy who was teaching Randy guitar lessons, and at one point he came to his mom and says, "I can't teach Randy anymore." And she said, "Why not?" He goes, "Because he's teaching me now."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's that's because it's rare for me to even think back and say, "Oh yeah, I remember Randy not playing a guitar or not having a guitar on him," because he always was playing the guitar, unless we were traveling, like on a plane. You were not allowed to bring your instrument on board or something like that. But given the opportunity, he will be playing.
Yeah, it sounds like my friend John Five. He's always noodling.
Oh, Johnny?
Yeah.
You know that I had a band with Johnny when he was 19 years old.
I did not know. Go ahead. Tell me about this. I would have texted him to give you a question. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Johnny. This is before he had a number.
Yeah.
Okay. 1990, at the beginning of the White Snake Slip of the Tongue tour, David announces that he was going to put the band on hold and pursue some personal, things that he needed to achieve. And so everybody in the band, especially Steve Vai. Steve Vai was working on his solo career. So he just crossfaded into that. And what I did is I put a young band together, pretty much in what I was doing. I was successful with 80s metal, so I'm going to keep doing this, not knowing that at the horizon was grunge.
Yeah, right.
Because it was coming out of Seattle. It was not.
Right.
It was not on the Sunset Strip.
That's
it was
right.
really far away from Seattle. I mean, from the Sunset Strip in Seattle. So somebody says, "Hey, check this guy out. He's playing tonight at Gazzari's." So I go, and there's like 5 people there. My wife and I were just walking, and so the band comes on, and Gazzari's had the stage. You could actually see people entering the stage from the dressing room, which was upstairs, going down some staircase. And on the way down, and I was not aware of this, but the singer hurts himself on the way down, going down the staircase. So he tells Johnny, do a guitar solo, kind of like, so he can wrap his head around with a bandage or something, right? So he starts playing a solo, and I'm going, this is incredible. When do you actually hear a band opening up their set with a guitar solo? And so he just blew me away, and his confidence, his tone, everything about him. He was 19 years old. So we put a band together called Sun King. We got signed to Giant Records, and and then grunge happened. I'll never forget this. John comes in. He already knew how to play Team Spirit. And he goes, and I go to him, and he's like playing, and I'm going, because now I'm frustrated. Because now the record company is like calling us up and saying, you guys got to make some changes musically. And it's like, okay, first of all, in hindsight, if I would have not have had my head stuck up my 80s, but so far away, into, I would have realized, wait a minute, a lot of these bands are very Black Sabbath influence.
Yeah.
I play with Ozzy. I know where this is coming from. Let me go in that direction. No, but I didn't. I could have, but I didn't. And it would have been great. I would have had a blast, going back into that more like that dark and Black Sabbath, early Sabbath, with Ozzy metal.
Yeah, like Soundgarden. The first time I heard Soundgarden, I'm like, this is like Black Sabbath.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And but I didn't. So we just kept going in that, trying to like convince the record company that you need an 80s metal band because we're coming back.
Well, it's funny that you bring it up back in 1990 or so. And now here in 2023, John 5 is going to be touring with Motley Crue.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, he's, of course, with all due respect to Mick, Mick is, founding member of Motley Crue, but
Right.
make the decision because of his health, and we're all aware of that. About his health, so it's a health decision, and also, I know Nicky loves, Motley Crue is like oxygen for him, So I am glad that Mick has made he's at peace with his decision, which means that there is a piece of the puzzle missing, and the piece of the puzzle happens to be John 5, and I couldn't think of a better living guitar player than John 5 to come in and be a member of Motley Crue. Because one thing about Johnny's always been a fan.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's a huge fan of Motley Crue.
Right.
So it's nothing better than to have somebody who is actually not doing it for the money, but doing it because they think this is the best gig or the best band they've ever been in.
Yeah, no, John is the best. And there's not a song, I don't think, in the planet that he can't play.
I know.
Hey, real fast, I just wanted to ask you about this. I'm running out of time here on my Zoom, but Rick Rubin, I just saw this today. He said Paul McCartney is the best bass player of all time. What are your thoughts on that?
I've been saying that before. Rick Rubin said it.
Yeah. I think I just saw a thing just yesterday. Paul saying that the benefit of Mr. Kite is the best bass line he's ever written, and he talked about how he plays it and he has to sing it at the same time, and it's kind of going in different directions. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, counterpoint. But he's also a piano player,
right?
So he's got playing the bass and playing chords with his left hand and playing with the right hand. So he's got that. He's got an internal clock that very few musicians have. Elton John is one of them. John Bonham, Frankie Banali had it. That just it's perfection. You just play to that. Mm-hmm. I've never heard McCartney ever play bad, and it's magnificent.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the best. And I watched that Rick Rubin thing, 3-2-1 on Hulu a few years back. Did you see that one?
Oh, yeah.
And them dissecting the songs was incredible.
Absolutely. And now that I've done a little bit of research, if you go back and watch when Rick Rubin solos the bass line on My Guitar Gently Weeps, and he gives McCartney accolades for it. Mm-hmm. Well, it so happens that there is a research that's been done to the recording of that song, and it's most likely John Lennon playing a 6-string bass that they just had acquired from Fender at that time, and that they were using in the studio. If you look at the Let It, what is it? Is it still called Let It Be, or is it called something else? When Jackson came in and redid the Beatles documentary.
Are you talking about Get Back?
Get Back. There you go. Yeah, I originally had to ask Let It Be.
Yeah, that's a fantastic documentary as well. Yeah.
You'll see Lennon and George switching over, playing that 6-string bass that I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, Rudy, thanks so much for the time. Rehab, Relapsed, and Remastered, and congrats on the Metal Hall of Fame. I know we didn't get a chance to touch on that, but that's, you were just there last week, right?
Yeah, but I actually got inducted along with Frankie Banali.
That's right.
About 5-6 years ago. And yeah, another thing that I want to mention before we go is the fact that we're during the 40th anniversary of Mental Health this year.
Oh, okay. Wow.
40 years.
Wow. Yeah, I can remember. Yeah. I can remember as a kid. Banging my head out to that one. That's for sure. But man, what memory! Yeah. That's awesome. So when is that going to be released?
No, it's not. You mean the fourth? No, we're just touring.
Oh, touring. Okay, yeah. Your video kind of got. Okay, I got you. Your video froze up there for a second. I didn't hear exactly what you said. Okay, I got you. Well, listen, send the best out to my band, out to the band, of course, with Johnny and Jizzy and Alex, good guys right there. I've never had a chance to meet Jizzy, but man, I love Hate. I got to get him on the show here one day.
Yeah, he's great. He's awesome. Yeah.